Welcome to REST, which stands for Resiliency and Empowerment Seminar today. I'm Susan Gans and I'm your host. I'm also the founder of Gans Strategic Solutions, where we work at the intersection of business and human behavior. This show is about hearing from leaders of small, mid-sized businesses as well as nonprofits. We hear the journeys that the leaders have taken, we hear more about their organizations, and we learn about how they're being resilient, especially in these very challenging and unprecedented times. I'm so excited to welcome my guest today. It is Leah Del Rosario. She is the Senior Vice President and Head of Human Resources for the New York Islanders Hockey Club and New York Arena Partners, which are the owners of the future Belmont Park Arena. Leah joined the Islanders in November 2019 as part of the senior leadership team that is focused on the organization's journey to build a world-class arena, solidify its brand in the Long Island and Metro New York marketplace, and ultimately to reconnect with its fans and sponsors, all in the pursuit of a fifth Stanley Cup. Woohoo! In addition to that, Leah is a graduate of Rutgers University and has grown her career in the human resources profession across a variety of industries. She's worked in nonprofit, she's worked in the cosmetics and beauty industry, she's worked in the fashion industry, and has also done things in the travel industry. In 2008, Leah joined the New York Yankees as the Human Resources Director for Front Office Operations. And there she was the first dedicated HR professional for the organization with the task of the overall development of the function and role of human resources itself within the organization. And later on, she went to the financial services industry and joined Broadridge Financial Solutions as Senior Director and HR Business Partner. So you could tell she has a rich history in the field of human resources. In addition to her day job, as I'll call it, she volunteers as president of the North Babylon Youth League while managing and coaching various levels of girls softball. And she's also an active mentor for young professionals through various organizations she's involved in. And she is a Long Islander herself, based here with her husband, who is a middle school science teacher, and two daughters, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention their English bulldog, Vader. So welcome to our show.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome. So take us back to the early days of your career, because you had this very interesting journey in human resources across so many industries.
Yeah, it wasn't similar to a lot of the journeys that folks go through now. HR wasn't really a major when I was in college. So I certainly didn't come out of college saying I was going to be in human resources. I started my professional career right out of school. I actually finished school part-time while I worked full-time.
Wow.
And yeah, that was a lot of work. But so many people do it these days, and it's just a testament to perseverance, really, and commitment. I started my career in core jobs in different industries, kind of trying to really figure out exactly who I wanted to be when I was trying to grow up, right? But I landed at Coty in my mid-20s-ish. And, while I was there, I had the good fortune of sort of having a really strong, a very supportive boss and a very strong mentor, right? And when I realized that HR was the direction that I wanted to go, I just had a business that was really supportive of that journey for me and gave me the opportunity. And so I really, I had been on the business side, and then I went over to human resources and started really from the ground up and learned as a generalist. And I think the function has evolved over the past 20 something years, and it kind of goes in a very cyclical manner in the way that it supports the business. But I think what's really important is that businesses have realized how important the function of HR is, because people are really, I mean, such a cliche, but it's just so true, right? People are the greatest asset that any company has. It's the greatest investment that we make. And, but you can absolutely see that return on investment in every employee that passes through your organization. So, I started as a generalist. I really built my career as a generalist. So I had my hands in all disciplines of human resources throughout my career. And then, really had the chance to hone in, I would say in particular, growing my skill set at Broadridge Financial, where I spent quite a few years supporting a very large global business, or at least pieces of a very large global business. I mean, that's what I love about HR, is that it really transcends every industry, because every industry pretty much has people in it. And so, we always have a role. And so that's kind of what landed me here, I guess you could say.
And what did you find going particularly from financial services back into sports now with the Islanders? What sort of differences have you found?
Yeah, I mean, well, so, sports is definitely its own interesting world. But it is a business like anywhere else. I think the difference, Broadridge was a publicly held company, and then I went over in between, and I was with another privately held company in manufacturing, personal care manufacturing and marketing. And then coming over back to sports with the Islanders, it's, first of all, it's privately held company, smaller business, if you will. And so, you really have to use all of your skills and your training, because you're a much smaller department, but you want to accomplish all of the same things that you would with a large corporation.
Yes.
But you have a lot less resources to put behind it. And so it's really just finding all of your best practices and putting them into play. And I'm very early on with the journey with the Islanders right now. So that's kind of a lot of the fun with it too right now.
Yes, and it sounds like it's an opportunity to be creative as well. And in having less, let's say, financial resources, so you get to pull on your creative resources and pull in other, I would say, stakeholders, I would imagine, to get your goals accomplished.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You're certainly not leveraging centers of excellence, that have been established, that large organizations would be used to. But I think that that's also part of what makes this journey so great. I mean, it's a smaller team. It's a little bit of a more intimate collaboration, not just within the HR function, but across the various, across the leaders of all of the functions within the organization. We absolutely have to be creative. Again, I think it's taking best practices and scaling them to meet the needs of the organization. It's jumping on board with the strategy of the business, really diving in and learning and understanding the business. And that's how you become successful, I think, as an HR partner.
Absolutely. And I love how you put that people are the assets, because I always thought about people in that way, that if you take care of your people and just simple things, hellos, how are your families, how are you doing, like really how are you doing, not just like how are you doing and you're walking away.
Yeah.
And really seeing people for who they are and appreciating the strengths that they bring to the table.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's amazing the power of thank you that we underestimate, right? Just an appreciation, 2 words, 2 little words, and that appreciation really, in my opinion, drives engagement to outer levels, that fail to be achieved because you don't use 2 simple words and mean them, obviously. Just that people come every day. I think it's really important for me. I always love to say, we work to live, we don't live to work, right? And so, but we spend the majority of our time at our job, right? And so you have to be hopefully happy and engaged to do it. And I think I think that every individual owns that, but we have a role in human resources in helping you to find that that happiness, or helping you to identify when you're not happy and perhaps, what the next right journey is for you.
Right. And again, so important. I just was remembering something that I have on my website that's about, when employees are engaged and happy and in an environment where they feel free to be their authentic selves, that's when you get the productivity, you get the joy from them, and it's what I call the magic, right? It's simple, yet sometimes hard to execute, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think conceptually we all get it, but it's so there has to be a meaningful people strategy, right? Just like we have a business strategy or a sales strategy, I think there has to be a talent strategy, and there has to be a commitment to that talent strategy, and it all has to tie together. But yeah, it is exactly to use your phrase, right? It's really finding the right recipe of that magic. You know, and giving that combination to our employees so that they can execute every day.
Absolutely. And you talk about developing relationships as a way of leveraging the organization and pulling resources together to achieve the vision for the business. Can you talk more about best practices in relationship development, professional relationship development?
I'm from the HR perspective. I think best practices as a partner, as an HR partner, really revolve around getting to know not just the people. I mean, I think to me that's obvious, right? But you have to get to know the business. You have to understand the strategy and the direction that the business is going, so that you can make the right recommendations and give the right guidance, from a people perspective and from a talent perspective. Um, and when you have those relationships and you build that trust, and that's separate and apart from the trust that you have to build on the employee relations side, right? Which obviously is very important in the other part of the role that we do.
Yes.
But I think that as far as being a business partner, you have to come from a place of understanding, and where your partners or your clients can see that you understand their business, and so your guidance is coming from a place that you're aligned to what they're looking to achieve. And it's not, I think HR gets accused a lot of trying to check the box on practices or activities, and I think those recommendations I think a lot of them are very sound. They just have to make sense for the business.
Yes, it's a core pillar because it's foundational. Uh, going back to it's your talent, even if you're in the manufacturing business, which you were, right? It's the people who are operating the machines. The machines always don't always go by themselves, right? So definitely, and understanding how that business works makes you a better partner and trusted advisor and part of that lean leadership team.
Yeah, and it is about building the relationships as well, Susan. I mean, and that just comes with time, right? And I think it's about I mean, as much as in this day and age, as much as we can have FaceTime, I think that it's important, right? I think connecting with your colleagues, not over email, but even, sometimes even, just even when we were in the office, pick up the phone versus send an email, or take a walk, get your steps in, take a walk, and have a face-to-face interaction. And those are the things I think that build confidence levels and build trust levels.
Absolutely. And that brings up a question for me about visibility. So, how can people be more visible during this time? So, where we might have walked over to a colleague and a few offices over, now it's not that way. What suggestions do you have for people to deepen the relationships and also to be visible and just show and shine what they're doing?
I think it's, you have to, so I think it's being respectful of people's time, right? But so setting up those meaningful meetings. I think you and I were talking about this offline, that, this video conferencing has always been there. We haven't taken advantage of it in most cases. And as much as, we never want to turn the camera on because then you got to make sure your makeup's on and your hair is done. It definitely helps, right? I think it definitely keeps the connection going in these very different times that we're in. And again, I think, phone calls are good. Conference calls are good. One-on-ones are absolutely, the best opportunity to get to know someone and to build your relationships. I'm not a subscriber to email and much, and as much as we live in that world, so you don't have a choice. But things can be misinterpreted by email or misunderstood, and sometimes create more problems than solutions. And so that's why I'm very much a proponent of the direct contact.
I am certainly with you on that. Because sometimes you'll see 10 emails going back and forth that if you just had picked up the phone like in 5 minutes, you could
Done.
solve the problem. So I'm with you. So when I see that chain going back and forth, I'll just pick up the phone and say, hey, can we have a quick conversation about this? And I think sometimes people forget that we have phones because everything's integrated.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk about resilience. So switching to video platform is one form of resilience and connection. But can you tell me how you personally are being resilient, how your organization's being resilient during these times?
Yeah, I think resiliency is something that it's a fight every day, I think, and it's an art form, you could even argue. But I think for me personally, I think, my resiliency comes in the form of sort of staying the course, right? And it's, not losing sight of, what we're here to accomplish. I think from a business perspective, it's great for us currently with the Islanders. Obviously, the season is on pause. And so so arguably our business is on pause. But we have Belmont Park Arena to look forward to, and so we really have we have all eyes on the prize, if you will. And so we are forging forward, and everyone has focus. And I think that that's what helps us, is because we have put goals in place just as far as how we want to achieve as an organization. And I think that that gives everyone something to grasp onto. And I think even, I think at the beginning we were all feeling very lost, Susan, and I highly doubt that me saying that means that we were alone in that feeling, right? It's just so unknown. I mean, and so you just, I think getting up every day and sort of knowing that you have that purpose is part of the toolkit, I guess, if you will. I think the other piece that's so core to resiliency is taking self-care.
Yes.
Right. Especially, look, I think especially personally speaking, as a working mom and wife, you take care of a lot of things, and most times you don't take care of yourself. And I think that that is huge and key. I have spoken with so many women, and we talk about, the burnout or just wanting to give up, when you have that day of pull the cover over and nobody talk to me, right? And you know what I always say? Do it. It's fine. It's great. If that's what you need for that day, that's your recharge, go for it. Because we neglect that. And I think working parents in particular, and I won't keep it to just working mothers, but working parents in particular leave themselves out of the mix and do themselves more harm. So that's, I think, from the personal perspective. But
I'm so glad you mentioned self-care, because I talk to leaders a lot about self-care and talk about that if they're not taking care of themselves, they are doing a disservice to all the people that they're serving, from their spouses to their children to their businesses to community to colleagues, and the list goes on. And I'm curious if you have any what your self-care routine is, if you have a morning routine and or nightly routine.
Yep, I have a morning routine that I admittedly fell off of and picked back up. So I run in the morning. Usually on a treadmill, but now I've been getting outside, and I think that I'm enjoying that a little bit more. And then, the morning is kind of just my time. I like that it's up and early before everyone else because it's quiet. there's no one there's no one asking you for anything, which is great. And then, and I think my routine has changed a little because we're home, everyone's home.
Yes.
But I do that for myself, and then get ready for the day and sit with my cup of tea, and then kind of get on the computer and give it a start. I usually tackle emails, at least initially, for a little while, and then I look away from the inbox for a bit. Right. And I think that there's a momentary self-care there, as I think we all tend to be kind of linked to our email box and sort of waiting for the next alert of whatever the next email is. And I taught myself a long time ago to kind of take that break. So to have those windows of this is not an email time, so that I can actually try to accomplish something. I try to put white space on my calendar, and I am terrible at it. I always fill it with stuff. So I think if I were sharing best practice, it's don't do what I do, which is put white space on your calendar and respect it. We joke, one of my colleagues, I said, I'm going to put a meeting on with myself. And then I'll just have that 30 minutes of my own time. But I think that also helps you to manage your day, and create boundaries, Susan, because I'm finding that in this current time, there are no boundaries. And I think that it's so important. And so being willing to say, no, at least for the moment, is absolutely key.
And what you're talking about is so important, and very practical tips is about carving out that time for you, whatever brings you joy, whether that's a combination of exercise, journaling, meditation, whatever that is for you as an individual. And then what you're talking about is also chunking your spaces of when you're going to look at email, and then shut email off for a little bit, when I'm going to work, when I'm going to give just some flex time, whether it's for me or just that something's going to come up, so you have it already built into your day that something is going to come up. So very important. I really appreciate you sharing that with us. Let's talk a bit about empowerment. How do you empower yourself? How do you empower others?
Yeah. I love the topic of empowerment. I think that it's, my focus, I think personally, is really been about empowering young women in particular, personally and professionally. I think it speaks back to my college experience and then all the way through my profession. And so, I think empowerment comes in so many forms, and it comes from self, but it also comes from finding the right advocates, the right allies, mentors and sponsors. I think you and I've been through conversations about, mentors and sponsors, right? And I encourage, and again, not just women, I encourage all young professionals, but, if you want to be empowered, you have to own it, right? And you have to say to yourself, that I own my journey, that this journey is mine. And that I will be the one, that will control it. And I will find the resources that will help me to get there. And so for me, that empowerment really just comes from making the choices that are right for me, and as much as I can, and trying not to let that be dictated by others, in as much as I can. I think, unfortunately, the reality is sometimes that isn't always the possibility. But it's just knowing that. I think it's about knowing that you have that ability to stand up and say, this is what I want for myself, or this is not what I want for myself. And I just try to encourage young professionals, right, to own their journey, to own their career, and to make the choices that are right for them.
Speak up a little bit. I couldn't get that last
sorry,
point.
Just to encourage young folks, young professionals, young women and young men to own their own personal careers and own their own journeys and make those decisions. I've been fortunate in my own career to make choices on my own, right? So I've been pretty lucky, and each move I've made professionally has been one that I chose. And I think that that's about being open to opportunity and about being open to change. And through those things, you are empowered. Through those things, you are empowered to do what you want.
Yes. And I think, especially during this time when there's so much uncertainty and so much of a feeling of unknowing, that when we remind people that they do have the power of choice and control over their behaviors, over their decisions, over their actions, that it boosts confidence. And so I love that you are teaching young people and emphasizing with young people that they are in control, even though it might seem like things are out of control.
Yeah, it is. So I think it's so important to look for the solutions, like rather than waiting for someone to tell us what the answer is going to be. I think you have to be the one to say, I'm going to give you the answer. I
I'm going to
may have
give
asked
you
the
the
question. Yeah, I may have asked the question, but I'm also going to give you what I think is the answer, or at least what the right answer is for me. And I think that's how you grow. And like I said, embracing change. I mean, if you don't embrace change and you're afraid of it, I don't know how you're not paralyzed, because every day is something different.
right. When people get so afraid of change, I like you, I say, I don't even
Why?
remember a time when
Yeah.
things stood still. I mean,
Yeah.
who knew that we couldn't live without iPhones and iPads and laptops that turn into tablets, or really,
Yeah, really.
or GPS systems that, with your iPhone you put into your car, and it becomes a whole different experience in your car.
Yep.
Like, and you think about that and you say, oh, I have adapted to change. But people don't put it in the context of, there have been small changes that we've all adapted to over time. And
Nothing stays the same. Nothing.
that's what I always say to people. Change is one of the things you can count on. Might
Hmm.
not know exactly what's changing, but change is something to count on. And the sooner you learn that lesson, it gets easier and
Yeah.
easier.
And enjoy and try to learn to enjoy it. That's what I always say, right? It's fun. I mean, to me it's fun to have to come up with the new response or the next reaction, because it's not the same day as yesterday.
Absolutely. So before we go, Leah, what would you like people to remember about our conversation today?
I think what I would like them to remember is that, again, we each own our journey. And so, particularly when I think about, what your web show is about, we each own that journey. And so if I have to make that choice, you have to make that choice. We get up each day, and, we own our future. There's a very long poem, but at the end of it is, I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. And I absolutely live by those words, right? I own it, and I own the journey, and I'm going to get myself to the other side of it. And so if anyone takes away anything, it's that reminder that, you are in control no matter what.
I love that. I'm going to repeat that. Is it, I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. Did I get that?
Invictus. Yeah. Yeah. The poem is called Invictus.
Invictus. Okay.
Hmm.
Gotta look that one up.
I'll send it to you.
Okay. That sounds very powerful. I really love it. And it's particularly relevant during these times when, like I said, people feel out of control and there's so much uncertainty, that you can make a choice to feed into the uncertainty, or you can make a choice which is empowering around being in control of your reaction. How are you going to react to it? You can't
Absolutely.
necessarily change what's happening. You can change how you react to what's happening.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So how can people find you, Leah?
Yeah, the best place to find me is probably LinkedIn. My profile is my full name, Leah Del Rosario. But you can also find me via the New York Islanders website. I think my contact information is there as well.
Okay, so I'll repeat that. So you can find Leah in LinkedIn under Leah Del Rosario, or you could also look up her information on the New York Islanders website and track the progress that's going on with the Belmont Arena, right?
Yes, absolutely. And hopefully we'll be back in front of fans soon and playing some hockey as well.
That sounds terrific. I so appreciate your time and insights today. Definitely feel so empowered and motivated by what you had to say about being in control of our own journeys and destinies. And I hope our audience feels the same. I thank our audience for listening and look forward to the next conversation.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.